Welcome to Last in Line podcast, where we are highlighting, showcasing, and spotlighting great leaders of faith who have overcome adversity, cultivated resilience, and served others in a significant capacity. So settle in and be encouraged by this episode of Last in Line podcast. Gentlemen, I'd like to welcome Frank Schwartz, who is the president of F3, and as you know, they are a worldwide fitness and leadership organization where men get together outdoors, men only. It's free. They do pretty strenuous activities. They rotate leadership every week, and it's just a huge group and community and movement that they have created for guys to have camaraderie, to have community, to have accountability, and to, more importantly, stay healthy and get to root issues that they call the circle of trust at the end of every workout session. And you're going to hear more about that. But Frank is the president, but hasn't always been. He came to F3, I guess, in 2014. He realized through some of his own personal health challenges, he was a stroke waiting to happen, as his doctor puts it. And so he was forced to do something drastic and got involved with F3, became a faithful, consistent, disciplined member of the fitness community, and then got into leadership, became active, served, and now he is president of the organization. And completely voluntary role, but he casts vision, he creates direction and leadership, encouragement for those groups. And you're going to hear about Frank's journey, man, his heart for men, what he knows that we're called to be, what he knows men need, where men are lacking, and what's preventing us from really stepping into that fitness calling, that the calling of doing dangerous, dirty things that require a little bit of fortitude, a little bit of resilience, and doing it with other guys. And that's really what his heart is. So you're going to hear about him. He's got his own company, leadership organization. He's an entrepreneur, started what's called G3L Leadership, founded LEC Media in 2007. So he's got a breadth of knowledge, breadth of wisdom, breadth of experience, and he's going to share that with you guys. So I know you can't wait to hear from Frank. Welcome him to Last in Line podcast. Frank Schwartz, welcome to Last in Line podcast. Welcome, sir.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, John. I appreciate it.
All right, I got to know. I didn't ask off camera, off recording, but what's the hashtag that you're wearing? Can you give us some explanation here?
Yeah. So an andist. So, John, we have a philosophy. My friend Dave Redding, who was the founder of F3, has a theory about andists and aurists. And andists are guys who can hold two conflicting opinions in their head at the same time without having their brain explode, right? But an aurist is a guy who says, well, either you agree with me or you are the worst thing in the whole world. I'm going to demonize you. I'm going to cancel you. I'm going to do all those kinds of things, right? And so we really believe that the aurists of the world are the ones that are trying to kind of split us apart. You know, they're the ones that are trying to divide the country, divide people, get us to fight, get us to hate each other, because they just can't live with the idea that they might be wrong about a thing.
That's right.
Whereas the andists say, man, I'm not in control of anything.
That's right.
The only thing I'm in control of is what goes in my mouth and in my brain and what comes out of it, right? That's about it.
It's good. It's good, man. I would say there are some andists who become aurists over the last few years, just kind of got sucked into the vacuum of society.
I think you're right. But I also think there's some aurists who become andists.
I hope you're right. We need to see more of that, right? And that's why you guys, part of why you guys exist. Maybe you can make a dent in that.
Sure try.
All right, man. So before we get too deep and get everybody thinking too much, let's get to know just a little bit about you, okay? I mean,
sure.
We can go as far back as you want, or we don't have, just kind of maybe professionally, your faith journey. I know you're a Christian. I know that's a big part of who you are. So maybe take us through some of that, and maybe even some mentors or leaders that kind of gave you a picture of what good looks like when it comes to leadership.
Sure. I'm not known for being brief, but I'll do my best, John. So I
Sounds
was,
good.
I grew up, it was a cold day, April 20th,
I was 4
1975.
and a half.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Yeah. No, I grew up, my parents were, we went to different churches at different times and stuff. And had a lot of exposure to faith, I guess, in some ways. But my dad would, he wasn't real consistent with it, and he would find himself angry at somebody and, offended by something that somebody said. And then he would not go to church for a while. And then maybe we'd go back, maybe we go to a different church, that kind of thing. So I
Yeah.
kind of bumped into God, I guess, as a young person a bit. And then as the Elvis Presley song goes, then I used to smoke and drink and dance the hoochie coo, right? And and once I got kind of past some of that's high school and into early college. And it was somewhere around my junior year, since we're talking about faith and kind of that I guess that kind of converting moment,
Mm-hmm.
if you will, for me.
Yeah.
Right. I was not living how I knew I should, maybe, somewhere deep inside. And I knew I wasn't happy. I could say that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I found myself just starting to ask a lot of questions, you know. And the big question that for me, I don't know how, lots of people ask different kinds of questions that lead them to faith, right? But I'm certain of it. And for me, I guess I kind of knew that there was a God, so I wasn't worried so much about that. And I guess I kind of knew, that there was like a heaven and some of these concepts that I had bumped into and that I'd been taught, growing up or whatever. The thing that I didn't know and that really was bugging me was, did I matter?
Mm.
Was there a place? Was there a plan? Was there a place for me in this world? Did I, is my existence just, I'm just here?
Mm-hmm.
Or was there something more to that? And so that was the question that really bothered me. It was really on my heart. And I remember, it's one of those things that it hits you so hard. You remember it clearly, even, 30 and whatever years later. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I would play racquetball with my brother-in-law, and he would talk to me. We would have these long God conversations afterward, right?
Mm.
And because he was a faithful dude, and married my sister, and she was very faithful as well. And he challenged me pretty hard on some things one night after playing racquetball. And I remember driving home, and just the whole way home, I just remember, I was just weeping, and
Mm.
I don't know if I was just upset or I don't know that at the time I could really identify exactly what it was that was just had me all twisted up. And I remember running to my little apartment, this is junior year of college. So I'm whatever, 20, 21, somewhere in there. Right. And I hit my knees and I just said, look, I don't know. I'm going to take it that you're there. I think you're there. But what I want to know is there a plan?
Mm-hmm.
And do I have a place in it? And John, to describe what happened next, it's like trying to tell you what salt tastes like. Like you experienced it, but I don't know how to describe that. I can tell you what it wasn't. You know what I mean? Like it's tough to tell you what it was. And it was an overwhelming experience. But since I'm kind of a little bit of a, I don't know, skeptical or whatever, especially at the time, and I was like, all right, maybe that was just me. Right.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just making
Bad
that up
pizza.
in my head.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. And so I remember saying one more time, I said, wait, are you sure? Am I talking to God? Are you talking to me? And it was like that same feeling, but if you had like doubled it or tripled it, and it was a completely overwhelming experience. And from that day was the day, I threw the cigarettes in the trash. I stopped drinking. I stopped all the things that I felt were keeping me from, that relationship that I wanted. And I haven't looked back since,
That's
that
great,
was,
man.
Whatever it is, 30 something years ago. Right.
That's
So,
great.
yeah.
No, I had a very similar, I guess, experience. And then, I guess kids come along and then you sort of give yourself a reason to go to church because you want your kids to grow up there, even though we
Sure.
didn't. And so that was helpful for me to just like get in the environment, right? Immerse
Oh yeah.
myself in it, and then God will work on the rest. And man, it sounds like he'll meet you wherever you want him to, right? Wherever you come and approach him, he will meet you there. You could have been in a dumpster at that point and he
Right.
would have still probably showed up.
Of course he would. Of course he
Yeah.
would. I mean, faithful always and forever, right? I mean, that's the deal. And it's really just a matter of our willingness and our desire to submit.
That's right.
And I tell you, I wasn't good at it for a lot of years, even though I had kind of had this conversion experience. I was, I still struggle. I would say really, it's only been over the last, I'm an old man now. Right. But it's probably been only over the last maybe 5 or 6 years that I've really felt like, man, I am really just now starting to really tip it over into what I would consider to be a more, I don't know, just that place of peace, that place of just real submission,
right?
Where look, I'm just going to trust. And man, that's hard, but
it is.
I'm not great at
it. But I mean, we never get there, right? Like it's not a destination, but I'd agree with you. Like about that same time, like I've been a Christian, I guess in next year, it'll be like 20 years. And this, over the last 3 or 4, I guess, I feel like I've gotten my footing, I guess is a way to say it spiritually. I feel like I've kind of got an idea of what stupidity looks like by looking in the mirror and understanding that he's okay with me anyway. And so and I think obviously I'll be honest, this platform and this ministry of Last in Line, like I think understanding serving more and stewarding more has drawn me closer to him and made me kind of have that hunger. And I think that's for anybody listening. It's all about desiring, getting to know him more and then trying to be like him and serve his people. I think you can't go wrong there. Did you have any leadership? It's a leadership podcast, so I'm under obligation legally to question you about
legally. I love it.
The board holds me.
The
board of me and me. No. But leadership. So you've been in corporate America. You still are. Sure. I mean, did you have some good kind of moments of, okay, I need to take notes about this guy. That's what leadership looks like. And maybe you didn't know at the time, but like, did you have anybody directly impact you? Coaches, bosses? How do you know what real leadership is?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So there's a couple ways I think you can learn this kind of thing, right? So for me, I had a job this is probably almost 20 years ago, right? And I was, out of college, newly married, and still early in a career. And I had a job, and then I decided everybody there wasn't probably any smarter than I was, and so I left to do my own thing, and I ran my own company for the last 18 years. And it really has just been the last 8 months, right? I had a client who kind of convinced me to come and work for him. And so it's been an interesting experience because it's shifted a little bit, but certainly, during some of those, in those years when you're the one responsible for everything, and you kind of know what that looks like and feels like, right? And when you have that, I think it's imperative that you're constantly doing a study on leadership, right? You never aren't watching, and you learn a lot from good examples, and you learn a lot from bad examples. Right. There's a lot of folks that I was like, well, I ain't doing that,
Right.
Right. Yep. A buddy of mine told me, it's funny, he was a consultant that I had hired and a good friend, but and he was trying to help me, grow my business. And we were really just having some struggles. And I remember him saying one time, he goes, you should never take advice from somebody you wouldn't switch places with. And I was that's pretty good advice. And I thought about it a little bit more. And I was like, you're fired. Because I didn't want to switch places with that guy. So
especially now that he's unemployed. No.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right. So a lot of good examples and a lot of bad examples all along the way, including, but not limited to. And I don't, it is what it is. Your dad grows up and you're parenting you, and he's figuring it out too. Right. I was the oldest boy, and he's trying to figure out how to parent. And so you learn a lot from that. Had a lot of good church leaders, especially once I kind of had come back to faith and was attending church all regularly and all that. A lot of great church leaders that were good examples of what I thought leadership ought to look like, and how to be kind of that servant leader, like we were talking about a little earlier before we started up. And just really men that I looked to and said, I admire that, but also I see the impact that they have, and the way that they are making a difference in the lives of others. And I want that. And so I would just start emulating them. And I'll say, again, and as part of why we're on here, right, is because of F3, which I'm sure we'll get to, but probably one of the biggest influences of my life. And if I were to say it to him, he would just say, oh, I'm honored. Because he's a very humble guy, right? But is Dave Redding. Dave Redding is the guy who founded F3, one of the co-founders of F3, and he has been probably the singular greatest example of leadership to me, certainly over the past 8-9 years that I've been involved in F3, and certainly even more so over the last 6 or so as I've been leading it. And he asked me to do that, right? That's so you take that mentorship and you really take that very seriously. But he's a guy who balances, or I think has struck a really good rhythm between very straightforward, hard look, straight talk kind of leadership, balanced with a genuine caring and love for those that he leads. And in having felt that, and because he is a man of incredible faith, and for at least in my mind, I think he's made me a much better Christian than I would have been able to do on my own. And he's just been a really good example and a good.
That's real good. I mean, sounds a little bit like something I heard before with 100% grace, 100% truth. Jesus might have done a little bit of something like that. And so when you talk about Dave, like, it sounds like he can be very truthful, but he can also be gracious, and truth and love never hurt anybody.
Oh yeah.
It's
necessary. He would always say it's a strange kind of love that would leave a man in a lie.
That's good.
Good, right? That
is good. Yeah.
He's pithy that way. Yeah, he's good.
That's real good. And you didn't even try to take credit for that. I got to hand it
to
you.
No need. To you. No need. Yeah.
Okay. Couple, just a little bit off the beaten path type.
Sure.
I do a little something different. Couple things different actually at the beginning.
John, I have a funny feeling you do a lot of things different.
I do a lot of things different. We may or may not talk about F3. So no. Okay. I call this like the dessert before dinner. I want you to give me a statement or two, or a vision. What's a walk away win for my listeners today? Having talked, you and I talked, and having them listen to a conversation with Frank Schwartz, what do you want them to walk away saying or benefiting from?
Man, that guy is so handsome. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. Man, that's a good question. I guess in a lot of ways you would say you'd want to leave that for them to figure out on their own after the conversation was done, right?
Sure.
But if I had to give them a takeaway, I'd probably give kind of the thing I'd tagline a lot of my tweets and a lot of that kind of stuff with, is I would say the best thing you can do is to stop being less. Stop being less. Just all those beliefs that you have about yourself, about the world around you, about other people, about situations, about past, and what the future may hold, all that kind of stuff. All that stuff you probably made up in your head, brother.
Yeah.
So stop being less. Stop accepting what you believe is handed to you. Stop being a thing that is acted upon, and go and act. That's what you were created for. You were created to go and lead. You were created to go out and act, to make things happen in the world. And when you don't do that, that's why you're miserable.
That's good. Yeah. Because, you hear people say all the time, if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. Or, rarely is there a neutral in this thing.
There ain't no third direction, right? You're either improving or not.
That's right. You're either an andist or an orist. No.
There you go. That's a very orist position.
It is. All right. I love that answer. And you almost had this look of, I have no way of knowing how to answer that, but you did. You knocked it out of the park. So that tells me that we're going in the right direction here. So, hey, okay, coffee shop scenario I'm going to paint for you here. And you're going to finish some sentences for me, sitting around talking with some of your guys. It could be guys that are part of the workout community. Sure. It could be your boss, whatever, your family even. I don't know. So here we go. As a man, I could be more intentional in the area of.
Probably. Man, I try really hard to be intentional pretty much everywhere. I could probably be, and when I say intentional in this case, it usually means I could do a little more planning. I could be a little more thoughtful, and that kind of thing, right, around it.
Yep.
And I would say that I probably don't give as much thought and planning as I should sometimes to my prayer and study. I do those things, but sometimes you're just kind of you're kind of going through the motions just a little bit,
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
and I could probably do it better. And particularly when it comes to praying for other people, I'm pretty good at praying for myself, and asking for things I want and I need,
That's right. Preaching to the choir. Hey,
right.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could probably do a little better job there.
Good. That's good. Yeah. See, you're doing great. No need to sweat.
I don't sweat.
Do you need a minute? No. All
No,
right.
I'm good.
Good. Good. All right. So, okay, here, fill in the blank here. The best way to get my kids excited about fitness is.
If I knew, I would answer.
I was going to say
tell you.
that one made the list about 5 minutes before we got on here, because I was thinking, golly, I'd love for my kids to work out as much as I do.
You know what, John? They'll never do it if you push them. So I have three daughters, and that's part of the problem, right? They're not athletically inclined. They've just never really been interested. I tried to get them to run with me and stuff as kids, and they just never really were interested. And what I realized is this is true of anything.
Yeah.
So you started the question of, I don't remember how you phrased it, but
the best way to get my kids excited about fitness.
And this is, you could fill that in with anything.
Yep.
Okay. The best way to get my kids excited about whatever is maximum liberty, maximum fun. Right. Okay. The more that they feel that they have a choice and a say and a voice in something, they're much more likely to participate. And especially if they see that it's fun. So if I say, hey, come running with me, that sounds like dreadfulnand to them. Right. But if I said, hey, let's go, whatever,
run to the ice cream store
or things like, right. Exactly. Right. And it's something fun, then I have a better shot. And if I say, instead of saying, hey, you're going to come with me, if I say, man, I'd love to do something today with you, right, that you picked, I'd like to do something fun and active, but I'm open. Like, what if we did something today together that was fun and active? What might that look like? Right. And they come up with those things themselves. Boy, they get real excited about stuff.
That's good. No, that's good. How old are your kids?
Well, now they're pretty old, right? 19, 17, and 13. So,
okay. Yeah. So teenagers, I mean, it's hard to speak that language. Like, I could see maybe that resonating with a 10 or 12-year-old, but my 17-year-old, they are busy too. They have their own thing and they can drive themselves to the gym. But I guess trying to be an example of it and showing the benefits in my life hasn't always moved the needle, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. You know what I mean? Being examples, there's something to be said for that. But I think your point is spot on, is they've got to find value in it themselves.
Well, I'll tell you the other thing, John. I have a feeling I'm a bit older than you are, but
I doubt it.
Oh yeah,
I'll be 51 in August.
Oh, look at that, man! All right, well, we're pretty close. I'll be 49.
Thanks for bringing that. You baited me into that perfectly.
Well, no, I thought you were much younger than that. I thought you looked more like 35 or so. But
thank you. I'll PayPal you later. We will get your PayPal later.
Yeah. But so then this, right? That when they get older, it does get tougher and some of those kinds of things. But and now I can't remember exactly what we're talking about. But essentially, being
an example doesn't always move them.
They will always do it if you play the long game. Is what I was getting ready to tell you.
Okay.
Right. They're not excited right now. They may not be excited today about it.
Yeah.
Right? But if you're willing to play the long game, and plant those seeds, and give them time to germinate, like they come around. They'll come around.
That's good. No, you're right. And the Bible talks about some of that too. It's kind of it is a long game. Okay. How about this one? Maybe a fun one. I look forward to the day when.
Oof.
Anything. Broad range here. Anything.
When I can live out, just wear myself out in service, when financially we're at a place where I don't have to work as much and I can just wear myself out in service, that's going to be a good day.
Is serving fun to you is a question.
Depends on what it is, probably. I'm not going to lie and say like cleaning a creek out or something.
No, yeah. But seeing the looks on people's faces of people that you've actually impacted.
Yeah, sure. That's always good. I mean, you always get some reward there. But something, John, I am a very firm believer that part of my purpose as a man on earth is to be useful. And so I derive a great deal of satisfaction out of being useful. And out of helping other people, and for whatever reason, I've always been kind of a rescue guy, and not that I've never been like a fireman or EMT or anything like that, right? But I've always somehow God has blessed me with the ability to remain very, very calm under very, very stressful situations. My brain just doesn't, I just don't react much. And so by virtue of that, it's been great to come in and, when somebody's in high distress and they can't see, because they're in that low visibility and high stress kind of situation, right. To be able to come in with a very calm, to me, it's just, I don't know why, that's how it's been. So I think that's what I look forward to.
It's a huge gift actually, because it's probably pretty rare from what I've seen. Things can get volatile real quick. All right, here's your last one of the complete sentence, and then we'll dive into kind of what makes you tick in the fitness realm.
Sure.
All right. If I could give Christian men one piece of advice, it would be
submit.
So you're saying Christians, even, right? We've got 100%. We're card carrying members here. We're saved. We're going to heaven. To that guy, submit. Because we're all kind of holding on, right? Tight.
Yeah. You think you control things, and that's why you're miserable.
You have not
really let God really take over in your life. And I know that's my experience for myself, right? I'm not a preacher. I'm not a perfect guy. I'm not even probably all that great of an example often.
Sure.
On certain things, but that has been my experience. Yep.
Is there a practical way to tactically tell somebody how to do that? I mean, I know it's a process. It's got to be. You didn't get there overnight, so you're not going to get out of there overnight. But so anything worked for you kind of in that first initial stage of that process?
Well, one of the things we say a lot, John, is how do you get better at pull-ups?
Do one, then do three, then
do more pull-ups, right?
One. Yeah.
So there's no magical formula, right? I mean, it's practice. It's practice. Yeah. It's catching yourself earlier and earlier in those times when you're tempted to try and hold on and control. And then it's making a decision one time and then, recognizing, instead of 25 days in between those decisions to let God take care of it and me not worry about it so much, it was 24 days. Great. Then we'll work it back to 20. Then maybe we can work it back hour by hour, minute by minute. And I'll let you know if I ever get there.
It's kind of like that fall test when teams go and do those rope courses or whatever, and the guy falls back and they have to catch you kind of deal.
Yeah,
man. I mean, that takes some trust. That takes some faith. And so, I mean, we've got to just kind of let go of the rope sometimes, and to a degree, God still needs us to kind of walk. It's not just throw up my hands and just hope he
There's a big difference between submission to his will.
That's right.
And throwing up your hands and giving up.
That's right.
Right. And expecting him to do stuff for you. That ain't going to happen.
That's right. Yeah. So for all of you sitting on the couch playing video games, eating Cheetos in your mom's basement, that's not you. You're not submitting to the God.
You're not. You can say you believe in Jesus all you want.
That's right.
But you're not. You're not unless you are actively working to be useful, actively working to be an asset to your family, your community.
Yeah.
You're not doing God's will.
That's right. And he said asset, not ass. So
hat.
You're being an ass hat. There you go.
I didn't say
all
that.
right, man. So F3, dude. I mean, I love the principles, the 5 core principles. I love the 3 kind of pillars you guys stand on. So without me screwing it all up, tell me kind of what attracted you to F3, how you got so immersed in it as president now, and what it kind of stands for.
Yeah. Again, I'll do my best to be as brief as possible.
No, go. We're rocking.
So here I am. This is 2014 would have been. So what's that? It's 9 years ago. And my doctor was finally like, I mean, I was about 50 pounds heavier than I am now. And I had been, a high school athlete, wrestled and that sort of thing, did a little bit of track and whatever. Not particularly good at it, but I enjoyed it. But I'd always been kind of fit. I water skied a lot. That was a big thing for me. So I've been active as a younger kid. But then, you get to college and you're not playing sports there. And then you get married and then it all goes downhill. And as soon as somehow 30 hits and you may as well just, give up, right? You're going to be fat. I don't know. Like, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. The 12 pack and Taco Bell at 2 a.m. does not set quite as well.
Right. Yeah. It does different things to your body than it used to when you were 21. Right.
Yeah.
And so I put on a lot of weight. My doctor said, look, you've got high blood pressure. You've got high cholesterol. You got sleep apnea. You got all these things. She goes, you're a stroke waiting to happen. And I was like, all right, well, I guess I better do something. So I started going to the gym, but I kept hearing about this F3 thing, and guys were like, oh, what about this F3? And then there was a guy that I worked with, and he had lost a bunch of weight. And I said, what are you doing, man? He's like, I do F3. And I was like, all right, give me this skinny. Like, what is this thing? I keep hearing this. What is this? And he explained to me what they do, like some of the exercise and workout that they did in the morning and stuff. And I was like, well, there's no chance I'm doing that. Like, that's hard. I'm not interested in that. Like I'll go jog my little, 10 minutes or something on the treadmill, and then I'll go and pretend to use one of these weight machines that I don't know what they do, but I'll push around something for a little bit, and I'll be all right. Yeah. And, but I kept hearing about it, and it wouldn't get out of my head. And so, whereas a lot of guys, will have somebody who invites them specifically, and then we'll show up with them to their first workout.
Yeah.
I just sort of showed up on a Saturday, and it was horrible. Like, it was really tough workout, and it was an hour long, and there were two guys who were leading it, and one did the first half, one did the second half. And I remember at the end of the first half, the guy brings everybody together, says, all right, guys, good job. Now I'm going to hand this off to this other guy. And I was like, what do you mean hand it off?
Wait, there's more.
Yeah, that was the worst thing I've ever been through. I can't do another half. What are you talking about, half, right? But I survived. And we do something at the end of F3 workouts that we call a circle of trust. Mm-hmm. We'll talk about that when we hit some of these principles and stuff. But and there was something magical to me about that. And for us, we did something we call a ball of man, right? Which means everybody just kind of comes in together tight. You lay a hand on a brother, and you share what's on your heart. Mm-hmm. You share those trials and those struggles and things that you're having. And in our case, because, we majority Christian down where we are, it doesn't have to be that way. We don't, in F3, we don't promote or subscribe to any particular faith or religion or anything like that. But we do say faith is important. We don't care what you are. We'll just make you a better one of those. But we, we offered a Christian prayer at the end of that workout. And I remember thinking to myself, whoa, wait a minute. Like, I think this is what church is supposed to be like. Like, this is what I've been kind of hoping and wanting, our men's group at church to be like, but it's just not quite there. There's something very raw and very emotional about it, And I kind of was like, all right, that's pretty cool. So I started coming about once a week, and then pretty soon it was like, maybe I don't need to pay this, whatever. Well, I don't remember what, $80 or something a month to, go to the YMCA or whatever. I was like, maybe I can just do this free deal. And I started calling, 2 and 3 and 4 times a week. And then pretty soon you're hooked. Right. And it was a lot about that rawness, that authenticity, that vulnerability of emotion in those moments, right? When you're just willing to be open and just real, just really, really real. That was really, I think, what hooked me. And then, of course, I'm in the best shape of my life. I'm, as I approach 50 or whatever, like I've never felt better. I make 18-year-old me look like an idiot. Like I would beat that punk to death.
Right. That's right. Hey, gentlemen, I want to take a step back from this conversation real quick to just let you know of a free resource I have available coming in the next couple of weeks. All you have to do is email me, lastinlineleadership@gmail.com, and give me your address, email address, and I will send you this resource. It is all about strategic spiritual warfare, learning who our enemy is, what he's about, what his tactics are, and what we have available to fight against him. I want to thank our partners, Uncommon, where they are equipping men to be the husbands, fathers, and leaders we were called to be. Thank you for your support. Thank you for partnering with Last in Line. And let's get back to the conversation we're having with our great guest here.
And so there's some value in that. And then, the last part of it is like, you got these friends now. I don't know how it is for other guys, right? This is how it was for me, and how I've seen it for a lot of other people is in high school, you had good friends that you hung out with. In college, maybe you keep up with some of your college buddies after you graduate, a few of them, maybe here and there. Now that we have Facebook, it's a little easier to keep up with some of these folks or whatever, but you're not friends. There's no one in there that I could call at 2 a.m. and be like, bring a shovel, right?
Yeah. Right.
Right. And cause we got a problem.
He's already got his keys in his pocket. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And these are those kind of guys. I mean, these are the guys you go to war with and go to war for, Yeah. There's literally precious little amongst my close friends, my close group of F3 guys that I wouldn't do.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't even think about it. And I've put it to the test, many times, and I see it done across the nation and across the world. we've got a group of guys in Kenya who are F3 guys. And, one of the guys that works out in the same area as me down in here, Charlotte area of North Carolina, he says, hey, this guy who told me the first time he had shoes in his life was when he went to high school. And he was like, and these guys are out there in, Kenya, and they're running around. A lot of them don't have shoes. A lot of them don't have gear. They want to work out. They want to do these things. He said, we're going to just do a shoe drive. Everybody give me your old shoes. And so he ships these shoes over. And then pretty soon it's we're shipping shirts and shoes and, all kinds of stuff. Right. And then pretty soon it's like, hey, what would really help us out is if we could get a car. I mean, they run in several miles, do the workout, run back home. And he said, if I had a car, I could really, and he's out there preaching the word, right? He's like, I could really do a lot for the ministry. And so, just this past weekend, actually, they had a big convergence and a big fundraising thing, and we donated a bunch of money, and we're just going to go to try and get them a car. Right. And this is how it works. This is how, when you bring men together in positivity like this, and you look at this, this trajectory of self-improvement that we're trying to put ourselves on, like, you can't help it. These are all men who something had turned off in their life. Something in their mind and in their heart had turned off, and they had just become kind of a shell of the man that they are supposed to be, the man that they could be. And when you take a man and you get him a little bit of fitness, right? You get a little bit of self-respect, a little bit of confidence back. You give him some friends, right? So it's fitness, fellowship, and faith. That's what the 3 F's are. So you get him a little fit, you get him start working on himself and recognizing that he can actually take control of his life, discipline himself, and become something. You give him some friends, some guys to support him. Then that faith, again, whether it's a religion or whether it's whatever it is, we say it's just, you got to believe in something bigger than yourself, right? That's bottom line. You take that, and he can't help himself. This is a system that works. It works every time it's been applied that I'm aware of, right?
Yeah.
You get this guy a little bit of fitness, you get him in fellowship with other men that are also of a similar mind, and then pretty soon the dynamite hits, and he will go and he will make impact in his community. He will learn how to be a leader.
Yeah.
And the reason that it works is because then you're actually living the purpose for which you were created.
That's right.
Right. If you're living some other purpose, you're going to be miserable and nothing's going to happen.
Yeah. Give a guy a glimpse of the possibility of who he can be.
Yes.
And you've got a not only a dangerous man in a good way, but you've got a dude that's ready to make an impact beyond his little initial 4 walls of his home. Right.
Yeah.
Man, so I had a question, and I don't mean to push any buttons here.
Push away
if it does, and unless I do mean to. I
am unoffendable.
I might actually mean to.
Go for it.
No, I have a question. Not pushing buttons, but your founders are faith guys. You said it.
Yes.
You're a faith guy, Christian worldview.
Yes.
Companies with Christian leaders sometimes are a little skeptical to come out and just say we're a Christian organization, right? You don't claim to be necessarily a Christian organization, but faith is a component. You're led by Christians. Do you find that more Christians kind of come than not that are part of it? And are you winning new souls to the kingdom through this? Like, say they don't show up as Christian, but just that brotherhood. Like, talk to me about some of the ministry and some of the discipleship that's going on.
So I would say this, and I know that some companies do get concerned and maybe a little worried, maybe even a little afraid on occasion to be too loud about their faith and things like that. That is not the case with us. We are a free men's organization. I don't need your money. I don't want your money. I don't care about it. So I'm not beholden to you for anything.
Sure.
You can show up or not show up. Doesn't matter to me, right? Yeah. The only thing I want you to do is be a better man. And if you decide to do that in some other way that's outside of our organization, that's fine. I don't care. But I'm not going to miss your non-dues that you're not paying, right? So there's a bit of a freedom and an untetheredness, right, to that aspect of it. So while a company may be afraid, or an organization may be afraid, or may kind of keep that thing under control because they don't want to invite any kind of flack or whatever, we say bring as much flack as you'd like, because we're not a ministry. We're a movement, right? Yes, we are Christians. I'm a Christian. The guy who founded it and the 2 guys who founded it were Christians, absolutely. But we don't want you to come thinking you have to be a Christian any more than we want you to come thinking you have to be in shape.
Sure.
Why would you come to a workout like, well, I got to get in shape first? Well, that's ridiculous, right? We want you to express your faith in whatever way it might be. So I'll tell you one example. Is that our express purpose? No, our express purpose, the mission of F3 is to plant, grow, and serve small workout groups for men in order to invigorate male community leadership. That is our express purpose. The workout just happens to be the thing that brings us together, right? We're a leadership group. So that's what we're about. Now, it so happens we don't think you can be a virtuous leader without some component of faith, without some component of your life that admits that you are not the king of the world.
Sure.
Right? That you have to submit yourself to something bigger than you, that some kind of higher power. We don't care what you call it. And that's not because we're afraid to say that God is the truth. We just say, look, we meet every man where he is because we think that's what God wants us to do. Right? Just like we were talking about earlier.
Right.
So with that said, I'll tell you one quick story. There's a guy, and he may or may not ever listen to this. He's kind of older and crusty, so he may or may not listen to podcasts. It's probably not his jam. So I don't feel bad about saying Austin Powers is his F3 nickname.
Okay.
Because everybody who comes out gets an idiot nickname, right? I don't know if you knew that.
Am I the only podcast host that has never talked about yours yet? I think I am.
Maybe, maybe we can get to it. Or we can't.
Right.
Doesn't matter to me, right?
Yeah.
But so that's his name. His name is Mark. You know, it's funny. At some point, you forget what guys' real names are because you use their nicknames so much.
Sure.
But anyway, so Mark is out there, and his F3 name is Austin Powers, and he, I think, came as an atheist. And in fact, when at the end, we would get into our circle of trust, and a guy would, offer a Christian prayer, he would start to leave early. And in fact, he almost said, I never want to come back to these things because that's not really my jam. And I'm not here to be converted. I'm not interested in any of that stuff. And I think it's all a bunch of baloney.
Yeah.
Right. And we were like, oh, we don't care. You don't have to believe what we believe. You have to admit you're not the king of the world, but you don't have to believe what we believe. And he was like, well, yeah, I don't feel comfortable. So I'm just going to leave early. We're like, that's fine. Leave early then. You don't have to stay for that part, but come out, come be part of it, come be friends, whatever. Right. And so he kept coming, and then pretty soon it was, well, he'll stay. Right. And then pretty soon it was like, well, the workout, because they're all free and they're always outdoors. Right. So we do a lot of parking lots and parks and, this kind of thing. Right. Well, this one happens to be at the church. Right. And it was never intended. It was never like, Mark, we're
baiting you.
Sneak that. Yeah. We're going to, kind of end run you, and tackle you into the church. Right. That's not what it was at all. It was just, look, we're just living out who we are, man. And if you're attracted to that in some way, we're happy to talk about it.
Right.
It doesn't bother us, but we don't care. All we want is for you to be a better man. And here's why we do this. So to finish the Mark story, the Austin Powers story is, now when they go to coffee afterward inside the church, right, and have a little Bible study, Mark's always there. Right. And I'm pretty sure he's attending on Sundays. Right. Is that a common thing? I don't know. I know. That's one example I know of because I was there firsthand.
It's awesome.
Does it happen a lot? I imagine it happens some. But here's the thing. I am a firm believer, and this is the kind of trust that I'm trying to have in God. And that is, if we are putting men on a trajectory, on a path of improvement, if they are looking for improvement in their lives, they will either find it or it will find them. Period.
That's good.
Full stop. And so I just trust that, hey, if I'm putting you on this path of improvement, you're going to find God because there's no other way to improve.
It's a great answer.
Not for real, right? So what do I care what you are when you get here?
That's great. No, it's good, man. I was glad. I almost didn't ask that, and I was thinking, no, I kind of want to know just for my own sake. I want to know the answer to this, so I did.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I would assume the brotherhood kind of goes beyond the workouts, right? I would assume these guys connect outside, do things, go to ball games, whatever. Families get together. I mean, I would assume that fellowship extends well beyond the workouts.
Absolutely. In fact, we do something that we call a shield lock, which I guess in some places might be like a small men's group or something at church or whatever. Okay. Usually, 3, 4, 5 guys and those are the guys that you meet with on a regular basis. So for me, for example, there's 4 guys, including myself. We meet on every Friday morning. Met this morning, 5:15 a.m. We get together and we usually spend a couple hours, and it's like, just lay it out there. What is going on? Where are the things that you need help? Where are the things that you need accountability? What are the struggles, the trials you're having with your kids or your wife or whatever it might be? And we just lay it out to each other. And that extends, to that time outside of the workout. Right. And what has that done? Well, it's made us better friends. And so now, we'll have dinner parties and then all 4 couples, come, right? And we do that. In fact, we're all going up to the mountains as men, together here in a couple of weeks, right? And that sort of thing is that's just part of it, right? You can't help it because
awesome.
It's how it's built. It's how it's designed.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great. I had a feeling, I mean, it almost by default would happen because when you go through misery with guys, you definitely want to hang out with them during fun times too.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, so, you're obviously reaching, I mean, you guys are reaching lost people and maybe you can't quantify that, but I got to ask about a guy you mentioned. I listened to a podcast you did a while back actually, but,
sure.
I think his name was Shopvac. Shoppy. Do you
Yeah.
remember mentioning it? Is that a guy you know personally? How's he doing? Like, I'm just curious. And we,
funny you should ask about Shopvac. Shopvac actually, so we worked out with him here in this area where I live. And Shoppy was he was a little bit older, a little bit crustier, right? So he had, and he was a funny guy, recovering alcoholic.
Yeah.
And struggled, not too bad. He'd been in recovery for a while, but had a couple of sons, good boys, went to the Citadel over in Charleston, here in South, down that way. And Shopvac actually moved out there to go be near his boys. And one morning, this is sad, but one morning he's walking his dogs and somebody hit him with a car and killed him. So Shopvac actually has passed away.
The one guy I asked about,
right.
I didn't know. I had no idea.
No. How would you know that? How would you know that?
No, that's really interesting.
But the thing about Shopvac was this, and this is how it works, and this is part of what we believe we're on as far as the mission, right? We want men to grow to a point where their leadership leaves a legacy.
Yeah.
Right. And Shopvac had improved his life to such a point, and he was so honest one week, and I remember this because it was me. He said, "Look, fellas. We're in that circle of trust at the end." He said, "I've been having weird thoughts about women and brown liquor." And I said, "Well, Shoppy, that ain't going to work. You got a wife and boys. Like you can't live that life again." And so I asked him, I said, "Why don't you tell me something? Why don't you tell me what hour of the day is the toughest for you?" And he said, "I'll tell you what, right around lunch, noontime." And I said, "Fine." So at 11:59 every single day, I would text Shopvac and say, well, I don't know if we swear much on this podcast, not trying to swear much in my real life, but are you effed or uneffed? Right? Yeah. And he'd have to tell me. I mean, it was a binary thing, right? Am I struggling thinking about it? Am I not? And if he wasn't, good deal, right? He'd give a little report or something. If he was, then I'd call him, right? And we'd talk about it. Or I'd tell him he had to call a sponsor, or he had to call one of his other buddies that's in F3 that's also in AA, right?
Yeah.
And that's the kind of support that you offer a guy.
Yeah.
For a couple reasons. One, because it's the right thing to do.
Right.
Two, because we have a credo in F3, and that is that we leave no man behind. And we leave no man where we found him. Right? It's not enough just to not leave him behind. You can't drag him along as a hot mess. Right. You have to be willing to push him with whether that's, hard looks and straight talk or a little bit of tank kicking, whatever it takes, right. To get that guy to move, but you can't leave him where you found him.
Well, I think it's interesting that you had I don't know if it was just kind of discernment, Holy Spirit gave it to you, whatever you want to call it, but to ask that question of what time of day, because that's not, I mean, that's an important part of finding out when it's actually eating at him. Like that was huge. And then it kind of got him saying, well, this time, okay, well, then there's a solution, right? We identify it, there's a solution. And then he's honest with you when you reach out. I mean, that's how it's supposed to work.
And that's the beauty, I think, too, of F3 is, when you show up in the morning, they're typically early morning workouts. Some guys do a middle of the day or the end of the day. 99% of them, they're all early morning, right?
Yeah.
Usually around 5 o'clock, 5:30 in the morning, something like that. And when you show up there in the dark, in the parking lot, and you're in for just a beating. I mean, these are typically very intense workouts for 45 minutes to an hour, depending. And you're in for a beating. And you're wearing your F3 shirt. It's got that circle in the middle of your chest, right? I know guys who are in active recovery that were homeless, that are still trying to figure out how they're going to, get from A to B to some degree, working out next to guys who are multi millionaires. And there is zero difference, right? When you're in the dark, in the gloom, as we call it, right? That early morning hour, right?
Yeah.
There's no difference. And so that's the beauty of it, is because since there's no difference, there can't be any judgment. And if there's no judgment, then you're perfectly safe to share these things that are on your heart. And if you're safe to share the things that are on your heart, then you are safe to get better with the other men that are there. And that's what this is all about.
I mean, that's gold. But I will tell you, I feel like in addition to whether or not God was in that moment where you asked that question, but God was in the moment where you had no idea what I was about to say next, but then you threw out the quote of, which I have here from the website, leave no man behind, but leave no man where you find him. I was going to ask you that. And then, all of a sudden you go stealing my thunder. I appreciate it.
Didn't mean to, but
no, I'm playing with you. No, but really and truly, it sounds kind of easy to do in the physical realm. So, guy is a stroke waiting to happen like yourself was at one point.
Yeah.
And you step in, you're like, all right, you're going with me because I don't want you to die. We're going to get your nutrition. We're going to get your fitness. We're going to lock you in and we're not going to leave you where you are. Okay. I don't know if the church, meaning guys around the church, guys that claim to be in discipleship, men's groups at church, guys that serve at church, I don't know how good a job we're doing with that. Talk to me why it's maybe more difficult in the spiritual realm to maybe live that out, or is it even, or we just made it hard?
No, well, probably a little of that too, right? I mean, there's always an element of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Part of it is because church is feminized to a degree. It's
100%.
It's like, and not that it's like, wussy or girly or something like that, but it's, it has become a place where it is, where we have to sit quietly, in a spot, and relatively quietly if you're singing worship or whatever, you know what I mean, right? It's order, and it's some of that kind of stuff. And then we go to class, and it's, very, you learn a lesson, you go to Sunday school, right? And that sort of thing, right? And it's a little more structured and a little more rigid sometimes than what I think a lot of men would be interested in. And so we find ourselves, like, it's fine. I don't mind, right? It's good. I love it in some ways, but at the same time, in some ways, it's like, we are physical beings. We are active things. If you look at the statistics of who gets put on ADHD medicine, it ain't a lot of girls.
Right.
Yeah. You think it's because that many men, or some sort of genetic thing that men are predisposed to ADHD? No, they just don't want us moving around.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's a good way to control the classroom. Well, maybe we don't belong in a classroom, right? Maybe I don't belong in a place where it's structured and that sort of. Now, I think I do. I think it's important for me to go to church.
Corporate worship, right?
I think that's a very, very important thing. But I think that we don't necessarily provide a ton of opportunity outside of that Sunday corporate worship, where we're bringing men together and putting them in those kinds of experiences. All we're doing, we may provide other experiences outside of Sunday worship, but they're often mirroring what Sunday worship looks like. It's like, oh, we'll get together in a small group. Okay. Fine.
Kind of a derivative.
Like it still kind of feels like there's nothing raw and unfettered about it most times, which is fine. It's not bad. Right. But I think there's more. And so I think things like F3 or, things like Last in Line these things where we can get men together and we can just be a little more menish,
I mean, right? tribal days, I would tell you, all of those guys probably would have been diagnosed ADHD, but they had to live, right? So they had to be savagely barbaric at some point.
Right.
And you guys talk about dirty and dangerous, and there's another one I'm leaving out.
Dirty, dangerous, and difficult.
Difficult. That's the kind of workouts we're doing, right? You guys are doing. Talk about, and I didn't plan to ask this, but I know I want to say it's Jordan Peterson talks about it's good that a man's dangerous.
Yeah.
Tell me your thought. Unpack that maybe from your perspective.
Sure. Well, when Jordan talks about it, or Dr. Peterson, whatever. Sure. I talk to Jordan like he's my buddy or something, right? But when he talks about it,
JP.
Yeah, the Pete dog. You know how he and I roll. But when he talks about it, one of the things he says is he thinks it's important for a man to be capable of violence, but then to control it.
Sure.
Yeah, and I, by the way, I wholeheartedly agree with that.
Yep.
Right. I think that is important. But I would say, violence, I'm hoping that we get to a place in the world where violence isn't as necessary.
Yep.
But I would say that if you dial it back just one more and maybe make it a slightly broader category, I think it's very important for a man to be useful in any situation, whatever that may be.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that may require violence,
mm-hmm.
right? But he wants you to control it, because if you're not capable of violence, then all you are is harmless.
Mm-hmm.
You're not nice, right? You're not practicing any kind of virtue, because all you are is like, you couldn't be violent if you wanted to. You couldn't be useful if you wanted to. That's not helpful, right?
And you can't be in dangerous situations like you're talking about. Your workout's dangerous, dirty.
Yeah, they can be a little dangerous. They can be a little dirty.
If you're not a protector capable of protecting, then you're not going to find yourself there.
Every guy is capable. It's like the old. Hey, have you seen my ring that repels elephants? Well, if there's no elephants around, then there's no test to see if it really works or not, right? But you can claim that it works.
Sure.
Right? So in a similar way, it's like, a guy says, hey, well, I'm a nice guy. Are you? Or is it just because you're unchallenged that you look nice?
Yeah.
Right? You seem nice. Well, anybody can be nice when there's no challenges.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is we live in a world that is full of challenge. And I can tell you, and I think you probably believe similarly, that the challenges are continuing to increase.
Oh, yeah.
Those might be financial challenges. There are moral challenges. There's physical challenges. Even the earthquakes are increasing. There's all kinds of challenges that are increasing in our world, right?
Yep.
And so a guy who says, "Oh yeah, I'm a nice guy, or I'm a good guy," but he's never been challenged, he's not. He's not a good guy. He may be a coward. He may not. He doesn't even know. Yeah. And so that's part of the reason our third core principle is that our workouts are always outside, whether it's raining, whether it's snowing, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The guys in Minnesota, when there's 3 feet of snow on the ground, are out doing burpees, man.
They're dogs. They're the dogs. Yeah.
They are. They do not care, right? Us soft Carolina guys who are like, oh, it's like 40 degrees. I don't know, right?
Yeah.
But part of the reason for that is you have to have that element of chaos. You have to have that element of danger, of unknown and unexpectedness, where you're making your mind and your body more durable by subjecting yourself to the elements, whatever they may be, right?
Yep.
And there's value in that, because now, and this isn't a brag, this is just a thing, right? I know, because of things that we do and challenges that we have participated in together, we call them CSOPs, right? It's an acronym. It stands for completely stupid and utterly pointless. There is no need to do these things, but we do them because it's hard and it's horrible. I know without any equivocation, I hesitate zero. If I needed to pick up any of my children, let's say my daughter, it's dangerous to say how much your kids weigh when they're 17, so I won't say, right? But if I needed to pick her up and I needed to run 1 mile with her on my back, I feel 100% confident that I could do so within a time frame, probably 9-10 minutes, right?
Solid.
With her on my back. And if that would save her life, then I'm a useful man. And I know that I can do that because I've done it, not with her, but with other weight, right?
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing we're talking about. It is, you can't be on purpose if you have no purpose. You can't be a man who is useful if you have not tested yourself to find out where your limit is.
Yeah.
Right.
If what you're saying's invalid, school wouldn't exist. I mean, you can hear a lecture, you can read a book, but if we don't assess your retention, or, if we don't prove that you learned what the material, right? I mean, that's what
you're of a
life
similar
is for
age
12
to
years.
me. So you know the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones probably in that song,
the
impression that I get, and it says, I'm not a coward, I've just never been tested. I'd like to think that if I was, I would pass.
There you go.
Right.
There you go.
Well, I don't have to guess. I know, certain things, not all things, right? But I know certain things because I've done them.
Well, so I looked up, and you guys, and I'm sure it's north of 4,000 workouts now. How many members or how many active groups do you guys have right now? I know you're worldwide, so you have a number and kind of what the future looks like.
it's like it's a little funny math, right? Because we don't take registrations because we're not collecting money.
Okay.
We don't. So we kind of estimate, based on sort of averages that we see. And, but the problem is it's constantly growing. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
the ones we know, and the way that we count it is, you show up on the map, right? So
Yeah.
we ask you to put yourself on the map. And so we know that there are north of 300 regions that represent somewhere, north of those 4,000 weekly workouts. And in each of those workouts, actually each of those regions, there might be 300 guys that are working out across different, days of the week and, different workouts and stuff. So we estimate, I think it's a reasonably educated guess, somewhere in that 65 to 70,000 guys across the world that have participated at some point or other, right? And guys that are truly active and really in it, obviously, is probably some portion of that, but it depends on what you define as active or whatever. But yeah.
No, that's big. It's growing, and you've been you're going on 10 years with the organization as president. I do have so is there a vision to maybe kind of a crescendoing event nationwide of, let's say, all the guys just kind of get to a centralized location, and maybe we have an Olympics. I don't know. Maybe we group them up, team them up, and we do. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many guys would show up, but no, I mean, have y'all ever thought of just getting kind of a reunion?
I mean,
for lack of a better term,
we did when we finally hit 10 years. So this was started in 2011, January 1, 2011, and in January 21. Well, it was a little later than January 21 because I don't know if you knew there was this COVID thing. But during that same time frame, during that year, we did manage to scrape some guys together, and we had kind of a 10-year celebration. There was about 300 guys who showed up, from all over the place, which was a decent size, but obviously nowhere near representative of what was out there. But a lot of guys at that point were still very concerned about showing up to groups and things like that. And so
that's cool.
One of our core, it's not one of our core principles, it's like listed, right? But one of the things that we are built on is a decentralized leadership structure, right? So I'm the president, but really I'm more, at best, I'm not going to say figurehead, but I would say at best maybe a cultural leader, a spiritual leader of the group to some degree, right? I don't really have any authority. I can't revoke anyone's charter, because they don't exist. We don't have charters, right. This really is, it's very loose. It's a little Wild West, right? So because of that decentralized structure, guys get together all the time, and they might get together in regions and groups and things like that. And they might have, 200 and 300 guys who show up to these, big.
Okay. That's cool. Like that,
all over the country. But we will never really make big attempts to do something that would be super centralized like that.
Okay.
Because that's us trying to push leadership onto men versus allowing men the individual initiative of leading themselves. Right.
No, I get it. And you being president, you're 100% voluntary role.
Correct.
Is that right? So you're an unpaid position. I mean, the workouts are free. So I guess, where do you see going forward? Like, okay, 2-part question before I let you go. Kind of make it easy for the guys to check it out, maybe join up, do that kind of thing. And then maybe what the future looks like for you and for the organization.
Yeah, absolutely. So if anything that I've said or anything that you've read, or if this is the 4th or 5th time that you've heard the word F3 and you're like, fine, I'll look at it, right? Just go to f3nation.com, right? Couldn't be simpler. Go to f3nation.com. You'll find a page on there that talks about locations, right? Find one near you, and it has the lowest barrier to entry of anything in the whole wide world. It is 100% free. That is our first core principle. It will always be free for as long as I am breathing. Someone else would have to come in and ruin it after I'm done, right? And probably long after I'm dead, because I would fight him on the top of a hill shirtless to win that one.
Let's go.
I'll go down. But it's always going to be free. So all you have to do is show up. Just show up and say, hey, I'm an FNG, right? Friendly new guy. I promise that's what it stands for. And
for all my military guys listening,
yes, exactly.
Work with me here.
Exactly
work with me. Play along.
Right? You show up and say, hey, man, I heard about it on a podcast, and they'll welcome you in. You'll get your idiot nickname, and you'll just be one of the guys, just like that. There's
20% discount for all the last in line listeners, right?
Absolutely. In fact, no, we will offer
One
10
time only.
years.
One
10
time
if
only.
if you mention this podcast when you show up, you'll get 10 years of free membership, guaranteed. I will sign that document for you.
I don't know what to do with that. I mean, no one's ever offered something that substantial.
No,
This
but you
is
have
a
to put in the
landmark
code.
moment.
Yeah, the code though you have to put in
landmark.
is last in line. Right?
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, man, it's been awesome for me to get to know you. You can
Same.
listen to a guy on a podcast, and then it's sort of the same, but not. But when we're talking like this, man, I really feel like I've known you for a while, and I appreciate you being so transparent, so authentic in what you do, and you do have a real vision for this and a heart for guys because you're doing it for free, for crying out loud. So what's a parting shot for our guys, maybe along the lines of fitness and just kind of challenging them?
Yeah. Well, you asked kind of what was the vision a little bit. And so I'll give kind of that wrapped into the parting shot as well and say that, we're going to grow membership and that's going to be fine. Right. And we have a kind of a loose goal of hitting 250,000 men by the end of 2025. Right. And so we'll roughly triple, where we are right now. And we think that's pretty reasonable given the way that we grow and how guys are. It's great. It's wonderful. I don't actually care. If we hit 250,000 guys. What I want, the vision that I have for F3 is that this mission, right, to bring men into leadership in their homes and in their communities, right? Real leadership, virtuous leadership, not abusive power leadership like we see in a lot of institutions in our country right now, right? Not talking about that. I'm talking about good, honest, servant leadership where you love first, right? You never let a person to be loved become less than a problem to be solved, right? You always put the person first. That kind of leadership, that's the dream that I have, is that we would have, I don't know what the number would be, but men missionalized, unlocked, right? Their minds open, their minds receptive to the idea that they are to be the captain of their own, their own vessel, and that vessel then would be pointed toward God. I mean, that's what they have to do. That is what a man must do. And in my opinion, right, in my estimation as a Christian with that worldview, and so a guy can differ with me and he can say, well, I'm a Muslim and I think that's going to get me there, and I'm going to say, you know what, awesome. Well, then let's just go be the best whatever we are, all along the way. And if I happen to run out of answers along the way, then maybe I'll join you. And if you happen to run out of answers along the way, then maybe come join me, right? And we'll figure it out together. But I promise you this: the credo is the credo, right? We ain't gonna leave you behind. We ain't gonna leave you where we found you.
That's right.
No chance of that. So we hear all the excuses all the time, like, oh, it's too early, or oh, I'm not in shape enough, or whatever it is. Brother, here's my last thought for sure. You have lied to yourself long enough. Stop being less. Just stop it. Do something. Yep.
And I would go even further as to say they're saying this to themselves I think they're leaving themselves behind because they're leaving themselves where they found themselves. And where has that gotten you to this point, I guess would be my question. So
amen.
There you go, man.
Absolutely.
Well, hey, I appreciate it, man. We're going to get all the ways to find you guys in the show notes. And I really appreciate getting to know you, audience. He has been the Frank Schwartz. We have been last in line. Be blessed.